Welcome to another episode of the Recovering Cinderella podcast, real stories of hope, inspiration, and advice from women who have made it through divorce for women going through it. My name is Keri Lauderdale Olson. I'm the host. I am the original Recovering Cinderella, and I'm a master certified life coach specializing in empowering women to move forward and create new lives they love after divorce. This is actually episode 2.
We've actually been sitting in the studio for a week now. It's gotten a little dicey. We've got pizza boxes stacked up in the corners. I'm not even going to lie. There's probably a lot of wine bottles sitting over here too. Same clothing and everything.
We were going really good last week and decided that we probably needed to split it into 2 episodes because you probably didn't want to hear it all in one. So we are continuing from last week's episode. My guest today is Jo. She is one of my closest friends, has known me for several years, and has gone through her own divorce and divorce recovery. However, she flipped the tables on me and has put me in the hot seat. So we're going to continue talking about my own divorce story and how Recovering Cinderella was born. So welcome to the show, Jo, and thanks for being here for week 2.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me back, even though we need to air the place out.
And I was still in the stage.
You're in that puppy dog, that endorphin phase.
Which you would have thought I would have learned after my first marriage is not the time to be making decisions, because this was only 6 weeks after we'd been dating.
But who did you have around you to help you gut check that? Who did you have in your inner circle? Your mother has already passed. I know you don't have a strong relationship with some other relatives. So did you have a core group of friends around you that were like, hey?
You know, what was interesting is as I started dating him, he didn't really want me around friends. We were busy. We had 6 kids. We were always together.
So he was never directly saying to you, hey.
No, he never said it.
But he guided you.
Yeah. And so, and I was okay with that. I was in love. I was happy. I had never been happier in my life. And so December 1st comes. The big Keith Urban concert. By this time, we're living together. I moved in Halloween weekend. And about that same time, actually before the Keith Urban concert, we had decided that we were going to buy a new house, because we had his house and we had my house. My house was way too small for us all to live in, and his house was not set up for 6 kids. And so we decided to go house hunting, and he decided we should just custom build. Because...
I mean, when you have an Omega chain with 3 stones on it.
I didn't have that yet. That came at Christmas.
Oh, that came. Well, he's pre-planning. Yeah. I'm thinking he's pre-planning. And I mean, you have to have a custom house to hold all of this stuff.
So we put a contract on a house in Lee Summit and started building this dream house, the McMansion. It was, 5,000 square feet, I think.
McMansion.
We're building a house. We're moved in together. We are in this dream world. And December 1st comes around, and Keith Urban concert comes, and we go, and we're in the front row. And when he plays Memories of Us, out comes the Big Daddy 4-carat diamond ring, and he slips it on my finger.
Well, so, boom,
done. Tears. This is it. This is my happily ever after, right?
Absolutely.
This is this man's wonderful, And so, then Christmas comes. So now we're planning a wedding. We're building a house. We have 6 kids.
A full-time career. And you're in management, or
I was in management at the time. And so what started happening is, if I wasn't home at 5 o'clock, or if I didn't get to leave work right at 5 o'clock, my phone would start being blown up. And it would be like, where are you?
Like after Christmas, or?
It was after Christmas, yeah. Where are you? What are you doing? Why aren't you home? I made dinner, And I'm like, okay, I'm a manager. I can't just walk out the door. There's other people that their work depends on my work.
Yeah.
And so I started to see these mood fluctuations. And that little gut feeling was kind of like, And that, for the first time I saw... he went into one of what I later called his rages. He would go into these rages where he would pace, and he had been a smoker before we met, and I would not date a smoker. And so he quit cold turkey. But then whenever he would get mad, he would go buy a pack of cigarettes and he would pace and he would smoke and he would, just get this angry attitude. And I never knew. I mean, I was like, what, and
this is just because you weren't at home
well,
one time, or like
the first time I saw it, it wasn't me that caused it, but it was the first time I had seen this side of him. And I was like, whoa, what's this all about? And
because this is contrary to
everything
you've seen
have not
to this point. Yeah,
no, I mean, he was the most loving, caring, giving man, and
so
all of a sudden,
this rage thing that happens, it's like Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah,
you're like,
completely.
What is this?
It totally took me off guard. So chalked it up to it was a very stressful situation. He just overreacted. I'm still in my dream bubble.
Yeah.
We're planning the wedding. We're building the house. And as we're doing these things, I kept asking him, so what's my budget?
Seems like a logical question.
And he kept telling me, there is no budget. And I'm like, wait. I have to have a budget.
Seems like a weird answer.
I want you to have your dream. I want you to have the wedding you never had. I want you to have, I want the house to be our dream house because we're going to live in it forever. And so we customized freaking everything. I mean, there was a $20,000 sound system in the house. There was a 6-burner Viking stove in the house. There was every single thing you could customize.
How many Christmas trees did you have in that house?
I had 7 Christmas trees in that house.
Full-size Christmas trees?
Probably 4 or 5 full-size ones.
Okay,
and then
fair
some
enough.
minis. Yeah.
Just knowing your propensity for Christmas trees, I had to get
And each one had a different theme, of course.
Well, of course.
I worked at Hallmark.
Yeah.
I worked in the ornament division. I mean, So, but as things started to progress, I kept asking questions, and the answers I got were very vague. And
now,
so
let me ask you this. So I'm assuming you're still going on business trips at this point.
I had cut down on those because it had gotten to be contentious when I left. So if I had to go, I did, but I tried not to go on as many.
But were you still getting the flowers in the room and the cards in the briefcase?
Yep.
Okay.
And so romance is still high. I mean, he would surprise me with little gifts all the time.
Not to get too personal, but I mean, are things in the bedroom going well? Like, I mean, I just want a full picture of Prince Charming here. Like, were things about every aspect good?
Actually, at the time, yeah, they were.
Okay.
They were good.
Okay.
So, as we are moving through, building the house and the wedding, and the budget questions were just kind of brushed off with, don't worry about it. And he was paying for everything, and he was paying cash for everything.
And I guess you also have to assume, okay, he's paying cash, so he's not incurring a debt to your knowledge.
Right.
He's bought you this jewelry and these rings, so you assume that there's a cash flow of some sort. What prevented you from digging deeper into that?
When I asked, he gave me answers that at the time I accepted.
Okay.
And so, he had a pretty lucrative career. And so I accepted those
men
answers.
do exist.
Yeah.
I mean, those men absolutely exist. Yeah.
So, we go through this process, and, I was madly in love with this man. I was madly in love with his man. And so we moved into the dream house, a couple weeks before the wedding. Yeah. No pressure.
No pressure there.
But about a month before the wedding, I felt like, I was getting tired of the stress that was occurring with my job and the conflict that was going at home. So, my job was getting a little more stressful, and then that caused more stress at home because I was, I needed to work more hours. I needed to be working probably 50 or 60 hours and a minimum of 50. That wasn't happening, and I was feeling like I wasn't doing what I needed to be doing at work, because if I worked late, and then when I got home, it was all about the family and him, and he needed attention, and it wasn't.
And you're also dealing with corporate America at this time, and you're dealing with still having to prove yourself as a woman. So how old are you around this time?
I was 35, 36.
Okay. So yeah, you're still proving yourself as a woman. We're still definitely dealing with glass ceilings and, a good old boys club.
And like I said, I don't know that Hallmark was really a good old boys club, but I loved what I did for Hallmark. It was my dream job.
Yeah.
And so
it's hard not to put that kind of effort into a passion.
And I'd worked really hard. I'd gone back to school and got my degree after I had kids, and I had worked really hard. I had been there 8 or 9 years to get to where I was.
You earned that position.
I felt we were getting married in June, and at the end of April, I made the decision to leave Hallmark. And I felt like it was the right decision for the family. And I honestly was tired of getting pulled in both directions. And he was a little concerned when I said I was leaving. But he didn't explain why. And I'm thinking, well, you make all this money and I'm not going to sit at home. I'm not a stay-at-home mom. That is not who I am at all. I thought, well, I told him, I said, I would rather do consulting or do something like that. And, but let's get through the wedding and we'll figure it out. So a few weeks after I left Hallmark, we were finishing up the house, and he came to me and said, hey, we've had to do all these upgrades on the house, and I've got the wedding and everything. How much money do you have in your profit sharing from Hallmark? And I told him, and it wasn't a lot because, I hadn't been there very long. And he said, not very long comparatively in Hallmark years. And he said, well, would you be willing to cash it out? And because we need to make another payment on some of the custom builds we did on the house. And I've got some things coming up, and my cash flow is all tied up with the wedding and everything. And I'm like, absolutely, And I'm like, no problem. You've been so generous. I have no problem with that. So I cashed out.
And it's also reasonable as an entrepreneur, that you get your cash flow tied up in future
other
investments.
Things. Yep.
It's a completely legitimate reason.
I had no problem doing that. So I cashed out my 401k and wrote a check to the builder, and off we went. So then the wedding comes, and it was my dream wedding. It was in an old mansion, and we got married in the gardens. I had the horse-drawn carriage.
Cinderella.
It was Cinderella. He actually bought me glass slippers to wear at the wedding. Now, they weren't actual glass, but they looked like glass. And he said, Cinderella has to have her glass slippers. We had, the kids in the wedding. And I remember there was he was in the garden. He was standing in the garden, and the kids were down there. And I was getting ready in the mansion, and I was overlooking the gardens. And I remember looking out, and I said to myself, this is my happily ever after right here. I've never been so happy.
You just captured that moment in your head.
I did.
And you're like,
it was so crystal clear to me because I just saw him standing there, and I'm like, I'm going to walk down that aisle, and this is the beginning of my happily ever after. And so we get married, and they play the Brady Bunch song, and we all get into the horse-drawn carriage and ride away together. And it was a Hallmark wedding. It was picture perfect, and it was beautiful, and everybody was like, this is just it was just amazing.
Oh, absolutely.
The kids gave the speeches, and it was perfect.
How many of these rage things had you seen?
That's very interesting because ironically, 3 days before the wedding, I went to get my hair done for the wedding. And ladies, when you're going to get married and you don't know how you're going to wear your hair, and you don't want to be stressed out on the day.
There's a practice session that you have to go through.
So I told him he had family in town, and I said, hey, I have this appointment. I'm going to go do this. And he's like, okay. And it ended up taking several hours, right? Because you're trying updos and you're trying different things. And the lady that was doing my hair was very meticulous. She wanted to make sure that it was perfect so that the day of the wedding we were good.
Yeah.
He must have blown up my phone no less than 50 times while I was there. And the texts and calls started getting more irate. And it was like, where are you? What are you doing? And I'm like, I'm getting my hair, it's for our wedding. And his rage just started getting more and more and more. And even she was like, what does he think you're doing? That you're out in a bar or something? And I was like, I don't know. And I kept explaining it, and he just kept getting angrier and angrier and angrier at me. And I remember leaving her salon and driving home, and I pulled over and I called my sister and said, I'm getting a bad feeling. Because at this point I'd seen him go into these rages a couple times. Mm-hmm. And she said, you had that bad feeling before and you went through with it. Maybe you need to listen this time. And I said, I can't, we've just built this house and the
you
kids.
You feel bonded to him because of all the money he's invested.
Right.
And you feel committed to this.
And I loved him. I truly loved him. And so I walk in the door, and he just explodes explodes at me and was screaming and
Are there
yelling
other
and
people in the house besides the kids?
His parents were there.
Oh.
And he's
there's
yelling.
witnesses to this.
Yeah, he's yelling and screaming at me. And I'm like, I was getting my hair done for our well, it doesn't take that long. And, we have things to do. And I mean, screaming and raging. And he goes into our master bathroom of our brand new house and he punches a hole in the wall. And I remember thinking, okay, this isn't what I
signed up for.
This is not okay.
Not what I signed up for.
And so he rages and goes off to buy, I guess he went off to buy cigarettes or whatever. And I locked myself in the master bathroom. And I remember just sitting there and just crying and going, this isn't my fairy tale. This isn't. Now keep in mind, this is 3 days before the wedding.
Yeah.
And he apologized and his mom, talked to me and said he just loves you and the boys so much. And, he's just really stressed right now. And I mean, basically telling me I was blowing it out of proportion, that I should just, he had a bad day, just blow it off. We had so much going for us. This should not derail anything. And I agreed. I was like, okay, this is just a one-off. He's really stressed. So making excuses, not listening to that gut instinct inside me that was screaming, this is not okay.
Yeah.
So as I said, standing there thinking this is my happily ever after, everything was going to be great. We got married on a Friday night, and on Sunday we flew to Mexico for our honeymoon.
I'm assuming the in-laws stayed to take care of the boys. And
actually, my boys went with their dad, and his kids went with their mom. And so we waited till everybody was off where they needed to be, and then we took off for a week to Mexico. And he had told me as we were trying to plan a honeymoon that cash flow was a little tight. And I said, okay, I have all these frequent flyer points from business travel. We can cash them in for the airfare, and then we can find a cheap, deal down in Mexico. So that's what we did. And he had hurt his back moving a few weeks before the wedding and was taking muscle relaxers. And we get to the resort, and the first day, I think he was kind of fine. And then after that, he was not. And it was our honeymoon and he didn't want to do anything. Oh. And I was like, what's going on? And he's like, I just don't feel good. And I could tell something was wrong. And we went sightseeing and we did some stuff, but it was just something was off. And I didn't know.
He was kind of seemed distracted.
Yeah, he was very, very distracted. And he was I didn't know what was going on. But I knew something was off.
So it was even more of a loud voice inside.
Yeah,
you're like,
it was. This has
gone weird.
Definitely not the honeymoon I was expecting.
Yeah,
and there's something off. And I asked him several times, and he denied anything. And so we get back on a Saturday, and Monday morning he walks into our room and drops a bomb on me.
Okay, hold on. Let's roll back. So you've been in Mexico for a week. Mm-hmm. The boys are still at respective.
I think they'd come back by that point.
They come back. Okay, so we've got everybody in the house. We've been married a week now.
A week,
and we've been together for how long?
Almost a year at this point.
Okay, but we're living in the McMansion.
We still have two other houses. My house was on the market, and his original house was on the market, because this is back in 2006 when the market was on that little bubble.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay, so you wake up Sunday morning?
Monday
morning. Okay.
I'm happy. We're married. We're in our dream house.
And you've left Hallmark at this point.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so you're not gainfully employed right now.
Right.
But he still is. Things have been a little amiss. He comes in Monday morning, you're stretching, you're yawning, you're like, welcome to my beautiful new life. And what happens?
He dropped a bomb on me that pulled the rug out from under me. He basically walked in and told me, I'm going to jail.
Oh.
And I was like, I laughed.
Right, because people I'm like, yeah, I go to Walmart today. I'm probably going to end up in jail.
Yeah.
It's just,
No, I was laughing, and he was very serious. And he had some issues that had occurred with his business, and basically had maybe made some decisions that were not the best. And we'll leave it at that. So
financial decisions?
Financial decisions.
Okay.
So I probably don't know the whole truth. I probably will never know the whole truth. He would never tell me the whole truth. But there were major ramifications from his actions.
Okay.
No, he did not go to jail. And to my knowledge, he's never gone to jail. So I think that was just a comment. I want to be clear about that. You know, he never did do jail time to my knowledge, but
At least not for that situation.
I mean, I'm just like, you know, but here I am, you know, in this dream world thinking this is my new life, and all of a sudden the rug is pulled out from under me, and the person I thought he was is not really who he was.
And I understand you can't go into a lot of detail for obvious reasons, but I just want to paint a picture here that are you suddenly now aware that the life that you have been building over the past year, especially monetarily, was
a lie.
It was all a lie.
I don't know that all of it was a lie. I think that part of it was a lie, but it was. We never should have built that house. We probably shouldn't have had the big wedding. And I didn't ask for those things. You know, I didn't ask for the 4-carat diamond ring. I didn't need those things. I enjoyed them. I'll be honest.
Well,
I mean, who wouldn't? But it wasn't like I was like, if I don't get a 4-carat diamond ring, I'm not marrying you. Or if I don't get the wedding of my dreams, I'm not marrying you. Or if I don't, and people who know me and have known me a long time can attest to the fact that's not who I am.
No.
I am very down to earth. I have worked very hard for everything that I have and appreciate what I have and what I don't.
Yeah.
I've been an entrepreneur. I've had money and I've been down to my last $5. So I've had both extremes.
I want to, because you can't go into it very deeply and I don't know the entire situation, I want to recap for all of the ladies out there that she was saying that he was paying for everything in cash. And he comes to her and says, I'm going to end up in jail. I made very bad business decisions. And pretty much everything that you had seen from him was, a majority of it turned out to be financially a lie. So there was a lot of acrobatics on his part going on with this to keep the dream alive, so to speak, to keep the facade in place.
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. So we're just going to say it was a surprise to you that what you were living was not financially sound
reality.
Or reality.
It was, you know, and here we are at this point. We now have 3 houses.
Yeah.
And we have 6 kids, and we have this life that's an illusion, right? And I think in the beginning, you know, he begged me not to leave him because my first instinct was like, I'm out of here.
Yeah. I can still get an annulment, I think, at this point.
Yeah. And, you know, he's like, I love you and, you know, we'll work this out. And I'm a Christian. I believe that everybody, you know, we all make mistakes.
Absolutely.
I've made mistakes in my life, you know, so part of me was like, okay, this was a mistake. We'll fix it. You know, we'll make it work. It won't be that bad.
Knowing you, did you automatically, after it kind of sunk in, did you go into
fixer mode,
like
Yep.
triage?
Yep.
Like, okay, I'm going to prioritize what we're going to do.
Yep.
And we're just going to keep moving forward and we're going to check.
Yep.
And we're going to deal with this.
I went into fixer mode immediately. It was like, okay, we need to do this. We need to do this. We need to do this. And as I said, I don't know all the details. I probably will never know all the details.
I don't think all the details are relevant at this point.
However, it impacted our lives immediately. So
let me ask you this. Did you hold on to this McMansion?
We did for a while, which was not the wisest decision. I immediately, when he told me this, my house had been on the market. I took it off. And I went back.
Did you tell him that?
I did.
Okay.
And I said that was my security and my kids' security. My name was not on the McMansion because my income was a lot lower than his.
Oh, yeah.
And I still had a house in my name. So that was probably the best thing I ever did, was to take my house off the market. I immediately went back. I could not get my old job back, but I was able to get some consulting work at Hallmark, and went back there. And my income, I covered my mortgage on my original house and then paid any other expenses I could on the other house. His house was still on the market, and then the bubble burst, so no houses were selling.
No.
And so it was a bad situation. And I'll be honest, like the jewelry, all the beautiful jewelry I had, we hawked it all. My engagement ring was in and out of the pawn shop at least 3 or 4 times.
Now, was this him coming to you saying, hey, can we go ahead and hawk this? Or was this part of your triaging process where you're like, okay, we need the money, we can do this, this, and this, and some of the jewelry can
It
just be hawked?
was actually more of a discussion of what can we sell to make it. Because when you go from making a lot of money to nothing overnight, it's a pretty dramatic swing. And then at the time he had told me, I remember saying to him, is there anything else you need to tell me? Is there anything else you need to tell me? Now's the time.
Yeah.
You know, if I stay, I want to know it all on the table now. And he assured me there was nothing else. So,
and how long is this process going on? Because you're married for less than a week. He drops this bomb. You go into triage mode. What kind of time frame are we talking about before you have that? Is there anything else conversation?
oh no, we had it immediately.
Oh, okay.
I was like, is there anything else you need to tell me? And he assured me there was not. So this is in June. We got married in June.
Okay. So you're definitely, you're looking at the fact that you're having to try to get money any way you can. Does he have business partners that are, I'm just curious from an outside point, is anybody contacting you on the outside world about any of this? Or is anybody trying to get to you for information? Or
They, at that point they didn't. It was about a year later that the IRS stepped in. And
now let's also remind ourselves that you also still have student loan debts.
yes, from the first
From
husband.
the first one. You
That
now
were-
have a mortgage on your house for the boys, the safety net that you're holding on to. And you're still doing consulting work at this point.
Yeah, I didn't have a full-time. Well, I ended up getting a full-time job. I changed industries, got a full-time job with less travel because it was not good to be away from home.
Yeah.
But I still had to travel. You know, it was less travel than what I was doing, but it was still,
Sure.
I had to travel. And it was actually on a business trip. This was actually, it was honestly, it had been a while. More information had come out that he had not revealed to me.
Even though you'd already had the
Even though
conversation.
we'd already had that conversation, yeah. We ended up losing the McMansion. All the jewelry was hawked. We sold everything we could and moved into my house, the little house that I had.
What happened to the house he had?
Went into foreclosure.
Got it.
And so we move into my little house, and I'm working and traveling. And at this point, we've been together. When we moved into the house, I think we'd been married, my little house, I think we'd been married maybe a year and a half, maybe not that long. And what I started to see was there was more and more of those rages. I mean, the rages were terrible. When you talk about cowering and, you know, feeling, it wasn't physical, it was more emotional.
Oh, yes.
But there were times, I mean, we went to Florida to see family, and my boys were in one hotel. We had adjoining hotel rooms, right? Mm-hmm. With a door between. And I walked into the bathroom to go to the bathroom, and I came out, and he's screaming at the kids and yelling at me. And I remember he went down to buy cigarettes, and I locked myself in the adjoining room with the boys. He beat on that metal door to the point he bent the door and was screaming. And I remember sitting on that bed going, what am I doing? What am I doing? You know, it's my car. It's, you know, the money's that's coming in is mine. Why am I doing this?
What do you think kept you there? What was the answer you came, or did you just refuse to answer and try to just move
I think
forward?
part of it was guilt and shame. I did not want to go through a second divorce and have to acknowledge that I've been divorced twice.
Yeah.
You know, I think any woman that's been through one divorce, the thought of going through another one, you're just like,
I've got to be honest. That's some of the reasons, and I'll be very frank here with our you know, all of your listeners. I'm in a situation now where that's probably one of the biggest caveats of, I know what a pain that first one was. So I'm sitting here weighing, do I want to go through that pain and the frustration of another divorce, or stay with the individual and put up? That's the balance.
It is. I think there's so much stigma still around divorce in general. And then if you say you've been married more than once, which actually is very common. So while divorce rates in the U.S. they're actually slightly lower than 50% for the first marriage, they're about 60% for the second marriage and even higher for the third. So there's that stigma around, I didn't want to say, I've been divorced twice. I didn't want to put my kids through a second divorce. I felt so much guilt and shame for putting them in that situation to begin with. And then to have to say, okay, we're going to go through another divorce. We're going to tear apart another family. We're going to, and so I stayed, even though the anger and the rage and the issues started escalating. I remember at one point it was on that same trip to Florida. We were down in Florida and we were staying with family, and it was 4th of July. And he got mad at one of my sons because they wore like the wrong shirt or shorts or something and started going into a rage. And I could see it. I knew the signs by then, right? And I went into survival mode, and I told my family, take the boys and they were going to somebody's house for a picnic or a party or something. And I was like, go, we're going to stay here. And they didn't understand. I'm like, just go.
Yeah.
The boys understood. They could see the signs. And he went into this rage that how dare I, make him look bad and all this. And I remember I was tired. I was done. And I went into the bedroom and I curled up on the bed and I put the covers over my head, and he screamed at me for a solid 3 hours, just raging at me and screaming at me. And, then when they got home, he acted like nothing had happened.
Yeah. He switched it off.
It was my fault.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Keri was in a bad mood. Okay. My eyes are just swollen from crying. And, it was those type of things. And it was, that narcissistic abuse where you're gaslighted and it's always your fault. And,
oh, gaslighting. That's one of my favorites.
When you try to say something, call them out on something, then it's flipped back. It's your fault, that didn't happen, or you blew it out of proportion.
Yes,
or if you hadn't have done this, then I wouldn't have reacted that way. It's all your fault.
And you're sitting there as a woman who is intelligent, accomplished, and self-assured on so many levels, and they say that, and you're like, well, yeah, I guess
I'm sorry, it's my fault. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have. And you're walking on eggshells the whole time. You pull into the driveway and you take that deep breath and you're like, okay, so when I go in the house, what am I going to get today?
Yeah. What am I being met with? And then they do that thing where they're like, honey, you're home. Oh, it's so glad,
I made dinner. I did the laundry. Oh, and I got you some flowers because I know you've had a rough week. Or
I got you truffles, and now I'm going to smash your face with a plate because it's like, I had to do the laundry, and it's like, you just never know. But it's those one times where they're just so kind and they're like, oh, sit down. You've had a long day. Put your feet up.
By the time we had moved into my house, it had gotten so bad. And I remember when it was my son's confirmation, he was being confirmed in church, and it was a big deal. And again, something happened, whether somebody picked the wrong belt or shirt or whatever, and it threw him into rage. He picked up a kitchen chair and threw it through my kitchen cabinets in front of the kids. And I was looking at him, and then he tells my son, I'm going to come to your confirmation and cause a scene because I can. My son cried all the way to confirmation because he knew he would, and didn't want to go to his own confirmation because of it. But then when I called him out on it, it was my fault. It was always my fault or the kid's fault or.
Yeah.
And the breaking point for me, a couple things happened all within a very short span of time. One was he totaled my car that only had I had a minivan that only had 2 car payments left on it, and he totaled it. And while I was on a business trip, he negotiated with the insurance company to have the check cut to him in his name. Now, his name wasn't on the title. And the only thing that saved me was the body shop that I had the van towed to was a friend of mine, and he called me when the insurance company showed up with the check, and he's like, I thought you hadn't decided what to do with this car yet. I'm like, I haven't. Why? And he said, well, the insurance company's here with a check, and they're taking the car. And I'm like, let me talk to them, because I had never talked to them about that. And when I asked whose name the check was in, it was in his. And I pointed out to the insurance company that they had a big problem because his name wasn't on the title. And if they issued that check then and he cashed it, they were going to have an issue. And so that got taken care of pretty quickly. The other issue was I had started a fairly new job, and I was in Chicago on a business trip, and I got a call. I was called out of a meeting by my CFO. And when I got the call, because she was in another city, and I'm like, I'm in the middle of a meeting and it's a pretty important meeting. What's going on? And she said, I have to tell you, I just got a wage garnishment from the IRS on you for 90% of your wages.
90%?
90. So let me tell you something about the IRS, ladies. If your spouse owes the IRS money and you're married, they really don't care because somebody's making money and they're going to take it. You can file an innocent spouse thing, but I knew nothing about any of this, and it took a while to get it straightened out.
So the IRS money that was owed
Was not mine.
Okay, and did that occur prior to the marriage?
It did.
So the IRS still says, "Oh, don't care.
Yes.
Now that you're married, there's another source of income in the house.
That's right. We're going to come get it.
We're going to come get you."
And
Wow.
so, I spent days and weeks trying to get the situation straightened out. You can file what's called an innocent spouse form.
And your attorney that you're going to have handling all of this stuff for you can definitely explain all
Yes,
of that.
this is, again, why you need an attorney.
And not Cousin Bob, who
Yeah.
does title transfers, not BFF Jen, who has done legal temp work. No.
Yes. So that was fun. And the breaking point for me, so these two things that happened in relatively quick succession, the rages were getting worse. I mean, and I got to the point like you where I just started screaming back and yelling, and it was not healthy. It was a bad situation all the way around, but you get to the point you're just done. And he wouldn't move out.
Wait a minute. Hold on. So you've found your inner warrior, and you're like, "I'm choosing not to continue with this relationship. You need to leave." And he just says, "No," and turns around and walks off. Like,
He's like, well, I don't have any money now. You spent it all.
"Oh, you spent it all."
I spent it all.
You're
and
such a. I mean, gosh,
yeah,
I know that about you.
I'm just, I spent all the money and he didn't have any money now, and it was all my fault. And so he wasn't leaving. He wanted half the equity in my house. Yeah. So
Are his 3 kids still with you guys at this point?
two were.
2. Okay.
So the breaking point came down to, we had been going back and forth about this, and he wouldn't move out because he didn't have anywhere to go.
Now, let me ask
money.
you this. Could you have called the police to make him move out? I mean, is that, I know it might not have been right for your situation, but that is an option, right?
It depends on the state.
Oh.
Again, why you need a lawyer.
Yeah.
It depends on the state. It depends on what's happened. It depends on if his name's on the house. It depends on if you're married and you haven't filed for divorce, they can stay, depending on the state.
Ooh.
So there's a
All
lot
kinds
of
legal stuff.
issues. Yeah. So what
It's
ended
never
up
just cut your bank account and split ways. There's
no. What ended up happening that just pushed me over the edge was he grabbed me one day in front of my kids. And
Was this the first time he'd physically?
It was the first time he'd physically grabbed me. And I looked at him. I'm like, okay, we're done. That's it. That's it. That was the line you're not going to cross, and you crossed it. And
so that was your deal breaker.
That was my deal breaker. If you physically, and the next day, my youngest son repeated almost verbatim what had come out of his mouth, the Prince Charming's mouth, and said, "Well, Mom, if you hadn't have done this, he wouldn't have grabbed you."
So he basically was gaslighting
Yes.
you.
And
Your youngest child
that
is
was
gaslighting.
learning this behavior from Prince Charming, and
who's not his father.
right. And at that point, I was like, this can't go on. And so I gave him a certain period of time to get out of the house and paid him. I took money out of, I had a relative that had died and left me a small amount of money. I paid him everything that I had to move out. And I said, things had gotten so volatile. I said, I'm taking the boys. I'm going to visit family. When I get back, you will be gone, or, there will be repercussions. Like, I will talk to the police. I will talk, and because he had physically grabbed me at that point. And we sat down because we'd sold almost everything, and we went through the house and said, okay, you take this, I'll take this, da, da, da. I leave, and we got back into town at midnight on a Saturday night. And I remember walking in, and my boys were teenagers, preteen. And we walked in, and he had cleaned my house out. There was not a pot or pan. There was not a chair. He had left like the boys' beds on the floor. He took my kids' baby pictures. He took the forks and spoons, and he left one little black and white, like it was like a 10-inch black and white TV on the living room floor. And I remember the boys looking at me when we walked in and they were like, Mom, are you okay? And I was like, if this is what it took to get him out of our lives, I am absolutely freaking wonderful. And I said, the next morning we're going to change the locks and that's it. Now, I knew him pretty well and I knew that he was going to need someone to support him. And so I didn't file for divorce for a while. And it didn't take long. And I actually think he was probably seeing somebody before he moved out, but it didn't take long before he was seeing someone else. And we live in a town that people know everybody else.
Yeah.
And so I think people wondered if they were having an affair because people didn't know whether we were divorced or not. And he kept asking when I was going to file for divorce, and I was like, when I get my stuff back. And I had a whole list of everything that had to come back, and it started showing up on my porch every day until I got it all back. And then I filed for divorce. And again, did it ourselves, I did it myself because he was not involved in the process. And he actually didn't even show up at court, probably because the same judge might have seen him before. So I don't know if that's the reason. I'm just speculating.
Speculating. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was the end of Prince Charming. And I started writing Recovering Cinderella as a blog over 10 years ago when this happened. And I was in so much pain and I hadn't done the healing. And I think when you go through a second divorce and you haven't healed from the first one, it comes back twofold.
Oh, absolutely.
All of that pain and hurt that you didn't deal with the first time, and the grief and
all those gremlins are sitting in the background going, we're just going to hang back here. We got you. We're just waiting for the next one to come. Oh, by the way, we're now here front and center.
Yep. And that self-work that I hadn't done bit me in the butt, quite honestly.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember, even though I wanted him out of my life more than anything, I remember being lonely and like, how am I going to do this? And what's going to happen? And I was extremely depressed and had a hard time even getting out of bed and taking care of my kids and going to work. It was just horrible. And about that time, a friend at my church reached out to me and wanted me to go to a lunch. And I was like, I am not really social right now.
You're like this is, I'm like pre-COVID days, but I'm looking about the same. So,
yeah, I'm like, yeah, it was about like that. I'm like, yeah.
Yoga pants, no shower.
Lunch is going to be a little more than I can handle. And she begged me to come, and I went, and that lunch changed my life. So when I got there were other women sitting around the table. I might have seen a few of them, but I didn't really know.
Did you know there were going to be other women there?
Yeah, she had told me. That was one of the reasons I didn't want to go.
Gotcha. Okay, so it was a group thing.
Yeah, it was a group thing. And
I'm like, it wasn't an intervention, though. That's what my point.
As we're sitting there, although I probably could have used one at that point, as we're sitting there and she's introducing everyone, she says, I really feel like you women need to be together. And I just really... I've been praying about it, and I just feel like you women need to know each other and you need to be together. And we're all looking around the table at us. And the only common denominator we had was divorce. So some of us were going through a divorce. Some of us had recently been through a divorce, and some of us had been divorced for quite a while. Some of us had kids. Some of us didn't. And we're all looking at each other like, what are we doing here? And so we agreed, because we all loved her, to meet the next week and just get together and see what happened. Mm-hmm. But before we left the lunch, she looked at me and she said, Keri, you're meant to lead this group. And I laughed and said, yeah, I am the last person in the world who needs to be leading a women's group, especially a church women's group. Like, that is not where I'm at right now. And
now until that point, had you been spiritual? Because I didn't hear you talk about church being a significant part of either of the marriages, outside of the wedding. Were you involved spiritually in your church during those marriages?
Yeah, when the boys were young, yes. I got involved in the same church that I was going to later. I had taught confirmation, but I did not grow up spiritual. I did not grow up going to church. I didn't have a personal relationship with God. That was not part of what my background was.
Right.
Then my first husband and I, he was very religious, and he wanted to get married in a church, and I didn't feel right about getting married in a church if I hadn't been baptized. That was a personal thing for me.
Okay.
And so the week before we got married, I was baptized in the church, but then we really didn't we went to church off and on when the kids were little.
Yeah.
And then, but with my second husband, we did go off and on, but whenever things were not going good, we didn't go, which is probably when you need to go the most, right? Church is not for the perfect. Church is for the people who are broken and sinners and need the help, right?
But he doesn't want to be perceived that way, so he's not going to put himself on display in that method.
So we we would go off and on to church. We didn't go. We went more sometimes and less others.
I want to pause for a second because I'm sitting here looking at you, and I know most of your listeners are going to be just listening to this, not watching it on the YouTube. You had a very interesting reaction there when I said he didn't want to be seen. He didn't want to put himself on stage and everything, and you kind of just shrugged your shoulders and tilted your head, and you closed your eyes, and it was. I can't tell if it was a look of pain or a look of...
I think that he didn't want anybody knowing his business. Like, there was a perception of who he was, and he wanted that. And so, we were part of an adult group at church, a Bible study group.
But I think more than anything, what struck me about your reaction is it was almost like a protective reaction. Instead of chiming in and being like, oh yeah, he didn't want to put his stuff out there for the world to see, you did that non-committal acknowledgement that we as women do when you're like, is he what? And you're just like,
Again, like you said, it's been 16 years for you, and you still hear a loud noise, and you.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's that PTSD to it.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
You wait. You know there's going to be a repercussion, and you're just like, oh.
Yeah. Exactly. You don't come out and
say
blasphemy upon this, Prince Charming. You just give that non-committal. And I have to say, in all the years I've known you, I have never seen you give a non-committal acknowledgement. Like, this is why I'm harping on this, is because I've known you for so many years, and I've never seen you be anything but 100% certain in whatever you've done. Whether it's, I don't know if I should do this or not, or I totally should do this. You've always had a very definite response. That is the first time.
That's interesting. See, I didn't even notice it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I've got to admit, ladies, this was like a moment of raw that I've after however many years we've been together, I've never seen. And that just speaks to how powerful these situations and how residual the feelings are going to be.
They do.
And you've
years
been working
and years
on
later.
it.
I've been actively working on it.
Yeah. And it's still there. And so, ladies, some grace for yourselves, please. Do not think that these situations will go away, that these will just absolve themselves, or you won't have PTSD, and that's a legitimate concern.
It is a legitimate concern, and thank you for pointing that out, because obviously I'm not looking in a mirror, so It's hard for me to see. But yeah, you come inward, and it's like we don't show the outside that pain or what's going on, because we have to have everything all together, because if everybody sees what's in those cracks...
Yeah. You look inside the McMansion, but if you look at the foundation that it's sitting on, and it's just bedrock, then you're like, and it's that way. Oh, how are you doing? No, really. You're like, no, I'm really. It's
actually, I think I posted not long ago, and it says, it's fine, I'm fine, everything's fine, and when you're going through a divorce, it's kind of like because. Well, so getting back to this group, this is why this was so important, is when you're going through a divorce, it's easy to put that facade on, right? And like, I'm fine, it's fine, everything's fine, it's all fine, and you're falling apart inside, and you're even if you know the divorce is the best thing in the world for you, and even if you know that you need it and you want it, there's still that breaking and that pain and that rawness of your dreams are gone and your family can be gone, and you still have to work through that. And so the week after we had this lunch, these ladies meet for the first time, and we tell our stories, and we're crying together, and we're relating to each other. And even though the stories were as different as we were, we understood what the other person was going through. Yeah. And that was my first support group that I led. And there's not a day that goes by that I still don't talk to one of those women every day. They became sisters. And we actually call the group Sarah's Sisters, because it was a name of one of the women in the group. Her mom had been in a group like that. But that group became my lifeline. And we did Bible study together, but we also went out dancing together. We played softball together. We went to bars together. We, probably shouldn't say this, but we had an adult toy party together.
Well, I think that speaks to, you have to, sometimes it takes a BFF or somebody pulling you out of that situation, because left to your own devices, especially without kids, you will stay in that bed. You will stay there because you are wrecked. And thank God your children were there and you knew you had to still mom them. But if it weren't for that friend pulling you out of there, And you probably fought and kicked and screamed the entire way. I don't want to go to a group. That sucks. I'm going to have to shower. Can I Zoom this? What the heck?
This is before Zoom, but yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. And
but you don't. So when women ask me, and this is one of the questions that I ask every woman on my show, is what is the one thing that you could tell women now that you wish you'd known then? I wish I had that group when I went through my first divorce, because I probably wouldn't have made the decisions that I made so quickly and jumping into another divorce, because I would have focused more on me, and I would have spent that time rediscovering who I was and realizing that I can be on my own and I was okay. Now, this is my passion, helping women recover from divorce. And it's taken me 10 years. I've led groups. I've coached women for years informally. Now I'm a master certified life coach.
Which I want to speak to here at the end of our discussion, because I have a few thoughts on that.
But one of the most powerful things, the thing that helped me more than anything, was that support group. Having women that I truly understood what they were going through and they knew what I was going through, and having that connection was so powerful. I can't even tell you how powerful it was. Enough that it's been 10 years, and the greatest blessing to come out of that marriage, that second marriage with Prince Charming, was those women. Had I not gone through that, I would not have those women in my life, and I can't imagine my life without them.
And I also want to speak to the fact that because of a lot of the way that the men react in these marriages with getting us to disband our family, disband our friends, it makes it that much more challenging at times to have that lifeline that reaches out to you, or that you could reach out to, because you've pretty much scattered everybody by that point, and you've kind of closeted yourself off from everybody. So that can be so challenging. Do you think there was a divine intervention at that point? Do you think that...
I do. I believe God led us together. I mean, my faith is a very strong part of my belief, and that, and anybody who knows me knows that my faith is very strong, and I do believe that God led me to that group and those women. And for me, I feel like I now have the tools to help other women in a way that I wish I had the first time, and that I did have the second.
I think what one of my big takeaways is, I sit here and I say, well, you're alone. It's harder to do this. But ladies, if you're listening to this now, this is what we're talking about. You have the ability to connect to these other women in this group by Zoom, by Facebook Messenger, by whatever other platform you can think of, and reach out to other people now.
Well, you do. And so one of the things that I recently launched is support groups that are specifically designed to do this.
Yes.
So I want women to have that type of deep connection and be able to, regardless of where they are in the world, connect with other women on a small basis and have that intimate bonding experience, but also facilitate and kind of group coach them through the key things that you need to know when you're recovering from a divorce, and help you work through those things. Because if you don't work through those things, when you go through your divorce, they're going to bite you in the butt later. And they're going to bite you in the butt in every relationship that you have.
In every aspect of your life,
Yeah.
I think. I mean, careers, children, future relationships, just sitting at home by yourself. If you can't feel comfortable in your own skin because there's stuff you haven't worked through, he does not have any right to have any power over you.
And it's easy to say that. I mean, it's easy to
say
say that.
Easy to say.
But the hardest thing is, and I get this question all the time from women on social, is like, how do I move forward? How do I get them out of my head? How do I get them out of my heart? And the key to that is working on yourself.
Yeah.
Loving yourself and learning who you are again. You're not the woman you were before you got married. You're not the woman you were when you were married. And who you are now is pieces of both of those women, but it's something more. And sometimes it's hard to figure that out and to figure out what your next plan is and what your next chapter is going to be.
And everything seems so overwhelming at that point. Everything seems so daunting. And it's a blessing that I know I can get on your message board and put something out there and just be like, oh, this has been rough. I thought I saw him basically the other day, and it was amazing.
Yeah. And so while I have had a Facebook support group in the past that's allowed women to do that, what I've realized is that the connections aren't quite as deep as what I'm trying to do with these smaller support groups.
Oh,
because
nice.
what happens is, it's like there's memes and there's all those things, and that's great. And it is great to connect with other women who can understand. But what I'm talking about doing now is on a deeper level. It's more about healing and actually in a structured way to where it allows you to have more intimate connections with women, groups of only 6 to 8 women at a time.
Oh, yeah.
And more deep connections with women, as well as getting professional coaching on how to move forward and how to deal with those issues.
And you are a certified life coach.
Actually master certified life coach. I've completed
coach.
Over 60 hours in training to become a certified. So I have a certification as a life coach, and then I took the next level. So I'm a master certified life coach.
Okay. So I have to do a little full disclosure here about that, because she calls me up one night and she's like, so, I'm doing my life coaching. I'm like, yep. She's like, I need a guinea pig. And I'm like, sure, why not? I've got nothing going on. It's COVID. I'm sitting here. She's like, so can I practice on you? I'm like, sure, why not? What came out of that, she tells me next, and I was kind of ticked at you about this one. She was like, so we can't, we aren't supposed to work with our friends and family because we know them too intimately. Well, I never being one to stay in my own box, I kind of said, yeah, whatever, I don't care. I found so much benefit, fulfillment, inspiring conversation come out of that one guinea pig session. I have basically written a contract that she doesn't know about, that I've now indebted her to basically coaching sessions for the lifeline or term of our friendship, and even beyond that, probably. I still work with you on a weekly basis. And I've got to be honest, I think you knowing me has been a benefit, because Keri does not tell me what to do. Let's be very clear. Life coaching.
She wouldn't listen anyway.
I wouldn't. I totally wouldn't. She knows me that well. Let's be very clear that the life coach aspect, and I was completely ignorant about this. I had no idea what this was going to be. That's why I was like, sure, why not? Whatever. And for me, the life coaching has been more beneficial than certain therapy sessions, because a therapist sits there and tells me what to do. And I hate it when people tell me that, because, okay, I know I need to get to the end, but I need help along the way. How do I get there? I need the how part. That life coaching that you do, I have to figure it out on my own. You make me get to those answers, aha moments, simply by kind of, you ask me open-ended questions, and we start talking about some deep stuff. We've gotten into some stuff I had no idea still existed or was even there, and have put me on a path to continue bettering myself. It's just been shocking to me.
She's making me all.
I mean, I can't even, ladies, I can't even tell you how beneficial the life coaching has been. And I was sitting here before we started, and I was thinking, gosh, I wonder why I hate to go to bed at night. This is one of the big things for me. I fight going like a 2-year-old. It's it's time for your nap. I'm no. And I'll sleep 4 hours a night. And I thought, that is our next topic next week. We are going to dive into this, because I can't figure out why, the context around some of these situations that I create for myself. And Keri does this amazing work where, in my opinion, she's just asking me questions, but there's
a path to
there's
the
a
questions.
path. And she knows me well enough. She's like, okay, a lot of times she'll have me do reflections with my eyes closed. And when we get done, she's like, I can see it playing out on your face the entire time. And it's just, yeah. So you're going to have to sign the contract when we're done here, saying that you're never going to leave me as a life coach.
I appreciate that feedback, because I feel like I've really found my passion and my way to help women, which is my goal. And I didn't know really before I got into this. I actually explored becoming certified as a life coach after I'd had so many women ask me to do it. And there's women I've informally coached over the years through their divorces. And now I have the tools to actually, officially do it. But I think life coaching can change your life generally. I mean, that's not just a cliche.
No, it is not. It is a firm fact for me.
It is one-on-one life coaching. So I do both, ladies. I do one-on-one life coaching where I actually do what Joe talked about, where I actually work with women one-on-one basis.
And we Zoom.
We Zoom over a Zoom call. And I actually do an hourly, weekly session with women to help them get to a new place. And it's whatever you want to work on.
Yeah.
But as you start working on things, you see the connection to other things in your life.
And I think only once have we actually ended on the topic that I started with, because we uncover something in the middle and I'm like, that's the underlying. Okay. It's like she's like Baby Yoda sitting over in the corner and just asking a few random questions. And I take off on these weird paths. And I can see how that would be so helpful in a group
Well, I do both. So I do the one-on-one sessions, but what I know when you're going through a divorce, sometimes, like I said, the thing that helped me the most was that group. And so what I'm trying to create with these groups is not only the benefit of the life coaching as a divorce recovery,
right,
but these intimate groups where you develop this support network. So when the coaching's done, you have your own support network.
Yes.
And these women understand you and know you, and you have your own lifelines.
And they're safe.
And they're safe.
And they're so safe. And there's that connection there. And yeah. Now, I obviously know I can pick up the phone and call for a life coach, but if women, your listeners, are interested, where can they find out more about this?
That's a great question. I have my website, recoveringcinderella.com. That's where the podcasts are located, but there is a tab for coaching. So I have information on both the group coaching and the one-on-one personal coaching. And you guys can always reach out to me, ladies. I've given my personal email out before. It's KERI@recoveringcinderella.com. You can always send me an email. And just if you're interested in learning more about coaching or how you can be a part of these support groups, I would love to spend some time talking to you about it. It's pretty exciting and it is life-changing.
It is.
I know all the work I've done, and you and I have both talked. I mean, our first divorces were a long time ago.
Yeah.
And yet there's still that, it's
residual.
Yeah.
It's a residual effect that just stays there.
If you've gone through a divorce and you haven't dealt with this stuff, and maybe it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 years later, and you never dealt with it, then, this divorce recovery coaching is still for you, because it can help you get through the stuff you didn't work through the first time and still move forward. And if you're not familiar with life coaching, it's not about your past. I'm not a therapist. I am not a therapist, and I would make a horrible therapist. But, Joe can attest to that. I'd be a horrible therapist.
She would make, but she makes the best life coach, and that should tell you something, ladies. I walked into it ignorant of what life coaching was, and it's literally, for me, and this is my experience, it's about fixing parts of me that I was not aware that were still disrupted, broken, shattered, or even out of joint, and how those things the ripple effect happens. We started with one the other night, and literally the first thing she said, "What's your earliest memory?" And it was from when I was like in 3rd grade. Like, I was super young when whatever we were focusing on, the first memory, and we just went down a path, and I'm like, oh, well, look at that. Okay, that's unique and interesting.
Well, we don't usually spend a lot of time in the past, but sometimes understanding when that behavior first started is really helpful, and to understand why you're behaving that way.
That is a good point. Yeah, we don't focus on the past like a therapy session does.
Right.
But we unlock it to look at it, acknowledge it, and then look at that path forward. And I will have to say, I love the fact that you dial the homework, I should say, appropriately. Because I've been in other groups where they're like, okay, we're just going to, each of you talks for 1 sentence, and then I'm going to give you a worksheet and send you on your way. And I'm like, whatever, I'm done. I'm out, checking out. That's not my gig, But one, you make me come up with what my action items are.
I'm not going to tell you what to do. You wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it anyways. Definitely wouldn't do it. 2, I hold myself accountable. I'm the person that if it doesn't get done, it's because I didn't do it, and I have to deal with that. But it's just amazing. How is that dynamic a little different with the group? So obviously the one-on-one is so powerful to me. How do you make that work in a group?
With the group, it's there are still some exercises that you can do in a group setting, and but it allows for discussion and sharing, because it's powerful, number one, to just know you're not the only one feeling that way.
Yes,
because when you go
absolutely.
through a divorce, I don't care how old you are. I don't care what your situation was. You feel alone. You feel like you are the only one that is feeling this way.
Yeah.
And so to have other women validate that and be like,
Girlfriend,
I've been there.
yes.
I know what that's like. The first time your ex picks up the kids and you're sitting there by yourself and you're a puddle on the floor because, they walked out the door, or, the dating after divorce. That's another topic. So I think that the group adds a dynamic that the one-on-one coaching, it's just different.
Yeah.
So depending on what you're looking for, if you're really wanting to grow forward and do a focused growth on you and you moving forward in some really powerful ways, and that's what the one-on-one coaching's for. But if you want that fellowship and that support group and that dynamic that brings other people into it and that healing, then that's what the support groups are for. And that's why I'm offering both.
And I think you could probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think during different parts of your journey, you might need different things.
Yes,
so
I agree.
Yeah,
and life coaching is not meant to be forever. It's meant to be unlike
really
your contract that you're
unlock
trying
my contract that you're going to be signing here shortly. Love, Keri,
and to Joe's point, we're not really supposed to coach friends and family. Joe started as I was going through part of my training and volunteered to. Luckily be a guinea pig, and honestly it's been very beneficial for her, I think. But
you think? No, trust me. Trust me, I'm here not even just trying to give you lip service. I can't tell you how my horizons have expanded at work and at home by some of the self-discovery that I've done, and some of it just whoa.
Changes your whole dynamic, doesn't it?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm going through coaching. Even as a life coach, we go through coaching with other coaches to help us. And I'm going through, I'm healing along with you and other women that I coach, because it's like I learn new things about myself too each time I go through a coaching session. And it's empowering. I think that's the number one thing about coaching.
That's a great way to say it.
It's empowering you to own your life and create. And I say this all the time. It's all about creating a new life you love. And that's one thing to say it, but doing it is something different. And so in order to create this new life you love, you have to remove all that negative baggage that you're carrying and all those mental blocks that you may not even know you have that are keeping you from living the new life that you love and creating this amazing new life.
Yeah.
So
I think that's one of the most powerful things is, like I said, I know where I'm supposed to get to. We all know that we're supposed to recover from this divorce and become a better person and move forward and have great finances and a career and life. But nobody tells you, how do you start that when you're sitting on the floor as the kids and the ex walk out the door for the first time? When you're wondering, what is my purpose in life right now? This is where you start. This is where you start, is with a one-on-one coaching, is with a group coaching, and you start to find that focus. And the clarity comes. Oh my gosh. I mean, how often did you sit there and you're like, I literally am looking outside of a muddy window. I have no idea what's going on. And that clarity comes with those conversations with Keri and with the other women. And those are the tools that you need to start moving forward. And that's how you get there.
I appreciate that, Joe. I really do. And
I speak from the heart on that one.
Thank you. And I appreciate you being here today. I know
my gosh.
This has been, I'm not used to the tables being flipped on me. Usually I'm
probing
a little for every...
That might have been a little bit of a divisive thing on mine. I might have been like, don't want to talk about me. I don't know. Still might be realizing just how uncomfortable more coaching sessions I need before I focus on some of this stuff. So back to you, Keri. Back to you in the studio.
So now that Recovering Cinderella has been in the hot seat, if you have your own Recovering Cinderella story and you are interested in being on the Recovering Cinderella podcast, you can go to recoveringcinderella.com and apply to be on the Recovering Cinderella podcast. Tune in next week for another awesome episode. I won't be in the hot seat. There will be another lovely lady in the hot seat next week. But ladies, I truly hope that these stories of inspiration and hope, and they just help you realize that you are not alone. You're not the only one going through it. You're not the only one that's been through it. And there is support and resources available for you. So you can follow me, if you're not already, at Recovering Cinderella on Instagram and Facebook. Again, my website's recoveringcinderella.com. You can sign up there for coaching, one-on-one sessions, or just shoot me an email if you're interested in learning more at Keri, at recoveringcinderella.com. Have a great week, beautiful. And remember, your story didn't end with your divorce. You are still writing it, and the next chapter is going to be even better than the last.